まあ15分か20分途中でティーブレイクをするということにします。野本さんがそこですね。羽田さん、少し変わったな。神谷さん、松永さん、大谷さん、小沢さん、マイケルとジョンがいなくて、ジョーさん、はい、でもジョーさんがいると中国語で質問されても私答えられないからね。ネイティブスピーカーと関わりないようなことで、日本語の問題で何かご質問あったら先に彼らが来るまで。はい。はい。いや、回ったのかな、それで。いや、回ってるみたいですな。で、どれを押すんですか、今度。
これとこれを同時に。
同時に。
同時に。
はい、すみません。進路ですね。勉強としては、昨日ちょっと言った、そのバイリンガルに限りなく近くなければいかんということ。もう少し日本人の場合、それを詰めていきますと、高校時代に、日本語をしっかりということは、要するに日本語の勉強、日本の普通の青少年としての勉強をしっかりやりなさいということを私は強調しますね。英語ができなきゃならないのはこれは当たり前ですから。昔はね、20年ぐらい前ですとバイオリニストになろうと思ったらば腕が2本なければならないといった人がいますよ。でそれは最低限で、あとは誰でも勉強すればある程度できるという意味だったんでしょうけど、今はこれ身体障害の問題があまり言わないんですね。駆け出しに足が2本なしだなんとか、いや日本で駆け出す人もいるからね。だけども英語がネイティブライクにフルエントにならなきゃならないということは当然だけども、ジョーさん分かりますか？私分からない。ごめんなさい。You look like one of us. The problem, no. You have to be as close as possible to be bilingual. And general education, general learning, what we call 教養. 教養 is probably, I don't know, is this this Chinese word too? General learning, 教養. To acquire basic fluency, generally it's a very good idea to spend 1 year or so during the senior high school days in an English-speaking country. It doesn't have to be Britain, it does not have to be America. It may be Canada, it can even be Australia, New Zealand, where you might pick up a little local accent. But anyone who after 1 year can pick up the local accent is already a gifted linguist. Many people come back still basically with the Japanese English, right? But to spend a year in a very formative years, where you form your character as a human being, 人格形成期 is very important to train your ear and be able to talk to your contemporaries, the same age group, in the kind of language that they speak, like high school kids. Then you can come back and go to Japanese university and finish it. I would definitely recommend a 4-year university rather than 2-year college to be a serious professional interpreter, because you do need a very broad range of general learning or 教養, a little bit about the literature, ours and other people's, mainly in the English-speaking world. You have to know history, ours, and the world history. You have to be constantly interested in forms of spoken words or entertainment, like as I like rakugo. Kodan is a bit far, so I don't think you need that as much as I listen to it occasionally. But rakugo, comical storytelling, is an excellent way for you to learn the importance of pause and delivery. So, good education, 1 year overseas, not very many years, 3 years of senior high school abroad, or 4 years of college overseas makes your student a little too un-Japanese. They may be fluent in English, but come home knowing very little about their own country. They cannot even explain Japan. That is not a very desirable kind of people. We like someone who is comfortable biculturally, who can express themselves in American or British or New Zealand or Canadian ways to communicate with them. At the same time, should be able to explain Japan to them, and vice versa. And they must be disciplined or mature enough to be able to speak to much older people anywhere from the world, particularly in Japan, where seniority makes a lot of difference. Young people are supposed to speak politely to the older people. It's true in other countries too, but often we forget that. Well, there's less of the age variation in the way you talk to each other in other countries, like in America. Yes, that's true. For example, in classroom, students often address their professors by their first names. Some professors encourage the students to call them by their first name. Still others don't. I know many professors who don't like it. But in Japan, it's inconceivable to address your professor in college, Taro, right? So you have to be bilingual, you have to be well-mannered, well-cultured, and good, solid knowledge of both languages. At the college level, what should you be majoring in? Again, to major is an American word. British usually don't like that word. They either say specialize in, or they use the word read in the sense of studying. Right? I read history at college. So just keep that in mind. From practical point of view, being a practitioner rather than theoretician, I don't think majoring in something like communication, linguistics I don't think it is much of help to make an interpreter. You may have a brilliant theoretician who just cannot begin to interpret. Much more useful subjects to study while you are in college or university is international relations, or sometimes it may be called international politics, government, international economics is especially useful. The choice may depend on your taste. You can always take economics as a part of your general college education, introductory economics, intermediate international economics, how foreign trade works and what is balance of trade and so on. It's very, very helpful. I think everybody should take Economic 101 and a bit above. 101 is an interesting word. It's an American college term. For any subject, the very first level class is 101, right? You talk about things like Econ 101. And just last week I heard in some American movie, they said, that's International Politics 101 or something like it. Yeah. It's elementary, that's what it means. So, international affairs, political affairs, government, economics, these are useful areas to be in. Cross-cultural communication, I know some people have taken it. Not bad, but they don't give you broad enough exposure to the real world. Right? I have found much more useful and practical interpreters who have studied these subject matters rather than abstract, if I may say, like psychology, applied psychology. It doesn't help you in interpreting. Psychological tricks in reading the mind of the speakers or trying to please the audience, you can learn by practicing it. So that is to answer your question. So tell your students, first, be a good high school student, if they are high school students, right? Yeah. Study everything we offer you. History, about the modern world. And then, during the high school years, if they can manage to get 1 year study abroad, and if they don't acquire reasonable fluency in 1 year in high school years, they are generally not linguistically gifted people. Flexible young person should be able to acquire the excellent fluency in 1 year. How do you feel about this?
That's where they go.
Where?
People come to that, they would basically spend a lot of time learning Japanese.
That's it, that's right, of course. Thank you. Yep. I should have mentioned, don't go to big cities where there are many Japanese living together, working, chatting with the Japanese. No. In fact, go to smaller cities.
The people who learned the most, so what Council was saying, they didn't go to a school. They worked in a factory. And that didn't help their English, but everyone was curious. They were looking and they would ask questions.
That's true, yeah.
And it was natural.
Yeah.
And those people
Yeah.
came back.
I may not have mentioned internship yesterday, but there are a lot of internships available. If you are prepared to pay for your own travel and the basic subsistence, an internship is not very difficult to find. Many American organizations, often civic organizations, non-profit, and sometimes government body organizations, private employers accept someone who volunteer and let me work for your company for 6 months or 1 year. I don't expect to be paid, so on. But there are all sorts of variations. Some organizations, many organizations in fact, give you the salary, but you are responsible for your own travel. And some places they give you even enough for your room and board. Last year I met a young woman who had studied English at Seymour Academy, not the interpreter level, and then through some magazine published in Japan about internship, found a job with the Japan-America Society of Virginia. Virginia being just south of Washington, D.C. It's a Virginia and Japan Cultural Exchange Society, non-profit of course. They sponsor tours to Japan, welcome visitors from Japan, help them, invite lecturers about Japan and America. And she works in the secretariat. I forget how she was. Yes, I think she was being paid. Not very much, usually sort of minimum salary. But she was enjoying it tremendously. She came to Memphis, Tennessee, where I was interpreting for the business conference between Japan and southeastern states. So we became acquainted. She told me she had studied at Simon Academy. An internship was very good for her. She was quite fluent because she was able to use the language every single day. So that's another way. But I would strongly recommend against the 4 full years of college or university, even 2 full years, especially when they are good at picking up the sound and mimicking the real accent, because that means you are away from Japan, Japanese culture, Japanese environment for 2 years. That's too long. Many fathers and mothers have come to me and said, our child, our son, our daughter has been abroad for 8 years and completely bilingual. She can become a simultaneous interpreter. Said, when your daughter has been abroad for 8 years, that means she has not been in Japan for 8 years. During the very important formative years of her life, right? She has not spoken to her contemporaries or elders in proper Japanese. She is in fact too un-Japanese in terms of culture, education. We need someone who are really good in both cultures, right? So we started with a little Q&A session for a change. Unless you have some question at this time. Yes? Yes. Translation is important. After all, interpreting is a spontaneous oral translation, right? Simultaneous interpreting particularly. Basically, you should be able to translate accurately. And then for actual interpretation, particularly simultaneous interpretation, you need flexibility. You should have in your repertoire variety of expressions, words, so that if you cannot think of one word, use another word quickly. But basically, yes, if you cannot translate written things accurately, how can one speak accurately? That is my view. I think translation is very important. But in the Japanese classes, schools, probably you need flexibility because of the emphasis placed on grammar in entrance exams, high school and colleges. I know you are expected to tell the students how to answer this question, generally only one way, right? But in the real world, there's never one answer to one question. Any comment? What kind of schools you teach?
I teach at 2 public high schools and conversation school.
How do you find high school students? I assume conversation school students are mixed bag. Young and less young, men and women, working and students, right? So for public schools, are they interested in English?
It's interesting you mention that because for my speech today, I'm going to talk about it a little bit. So
Very good, very good. Yeah, all right, let's save it. save the fun for a little later. All right.
It's interesting. It definitely has its ups and downs.
Oh, by the way, that 20-minute speech is not for my class, for Komatsu-san. Oh, but you're going to, that's right. Help our demonstration, right?
Right. That's right. Just a brief.
Yep, that's fine.
About that.
Yep.
But I will address that.
Yes. What I thought I would do this morning is ask Mike and John, one after another. We appreciate you being good sports. Give a short talk. May have been prepared, but we'll present it as if spontaneously doing it. In other words, without reading it. If you read the text, you become impersonal. You sound impassionate. And the tone there's no personality or feeling that comes through it. But if you are thinking, and for example, if you are thinking, I'm not sure what I want to say, but I'm thinking, that hesitation, for example, comes through. And when the speaker sounds a little hesitant, you can tell that his or her choice of words may not be exactly perfect, but you can read his mind and even put the words in his mouth. I have often done that. And I need some volunteers to translate what Mike and John will say into Japanese. Yeah, let's try a little bit of that. Anyone would you like to volunteer? You do most interpreting at school, right? But how about you? Why not? Do. All right. So bring something like your notepad, and Mike, will you please?
I have some notes. I'll try not to read it, but I do have some.
Yeah. Okay. Look at it occasionally.
So is he going to be listening first and then translating?
Yeah, consecutively. Yes, consecutively.
Like I should take it as a segment at a time? And
Paragraph,
stop?
segmented
Paragraph at a time.
paragraph. When what I said yesterday, you might remember. You might pause where you would, in writing, like to change your paragraph.
Okay.
But if that paragraph is too long, you may not be able to digest it wholly.
A bit earlier, Mr. Muramatsu asked me how I feel about teaching in a high school, public high school in Japan, and I'd like to address that for you today.
Yes.
They don't speak English.
You are not listening.
A bit earlier, Mr. Muramatsu had asked me how I feel about teaching in high school in Japan, and I would like to address that for you today.
So when that happens, you just apologize. Excuse me, would you mind repeating it?
A little earlier, Mr. Muramatsu had asked me how I feel about teaching at the high school level in Japan.
少し前に先ほど村松先生は日本の高校教育について私にご質問をされました。
And I'll start by saying, I often ask myself this question: who am I teaching for? Do I want to devote my life to teaching?
誰に対して教えているのかということ
seem to have made quite a commitment by entering this TC program. So I feel much more committed to teaching than I ever have before. How do I indicate an end?
Usually by the tone, by the delivery, and the good interpreter can read that. Ozawa-san, what's the problem? The word commitment bother you?
Let's try again.
Let's try it again.
Okay. I often ask myself the same question. Who am I teaching for? And do I want to devote my life to teaching?
Please speak clearly. All right, all right. You suffered enough. If you might stay here. He said, 誰に教えている? It's not to whom. Who I'm teaching for. Isn't that what Mike said? For. For whom am I teaching? In whose interest, in other words, right? 誰のためにでしょ? Now, it's very interesting. He didn't say who I am teaching. Who am I teaching to? He said who am I teaching for? Right? You have to read the speaker's mind. He's talking about something broader than what I thought. Right? And he said, your Japanese translation sounded like somebody asked me the other day. No. Mike said, I ask myself, or I often ask myself, or the other day I asked myself. He asked himself. Remember the phrase John F. Kennedy made famous? Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Remember? I think you should know. If you remember good phrases like that, the usage of phrase like, who am I teaching for? It's very easy to understand. Okay, in terms of the context, you started with Mr. Muramatsu's question about my feeling. How do I feel about teaching high school level English? Right? Who am I? Very good. Good teacher. And now he came to the matter of commitment. What is commitment? I have made my commitment, he said. Commitment is a very strong word, very good word. If you come to this class half-heartedly, just half of your heart, in other words, not seriously, it may be interesting, but I'm not sure. I don't particularly need this class, but I have to win my credit points. That's doing it half-heartedly. On the other hand, someone like Mike Rolfe is obviously, seriously committed to it. 約束する、ね、打ち込む。打ち込む is another good Japanese word for to throw yourself into it. But if you understand the concept, if you follow his logic, he has gotten up and he's going to talk about his experience teaching high school levels English, and I've started thinking about who is this for? Is this for them? Is it for Japan? Is this for the U.S. military personnel in Yokosuka? Is this for me or for my sister? That is the question he asked of himself, right? Now that's a very deep, soul-searching question. And then, sure enough, in the next portion, next piece of delivery, he said, I am committed, and mentioned something else about commitment, but that's a very strong word. 本気でやる for example commitment as one word is not easy to translate 約束 is like promise it's part of it yes you promise to yourself but to suppose if he says I'm committed to finishing Columbia Teachers College in 3 years that's 決意する I'm determined strongly and devoting myself entirely to that cause that's commitment okay so if you understand the word commitment there is no one single translation trouble with teaching school English is teachers expect students to write one word and you would accept only one answer. But in the real world, when, for example, John gets up and wants to do the same thing, he may use a different word. I have decided to dedicate myself 100% to this study. Same as commitment, just different expressions, right? But the main thing is get the idea and produce deliver this idea in another language so that in the end the message is delivered. Would you like to try a little more? Yeah, please you might repeat the last point about commitment.
I seem to have made quite a commitment by entering this TC program.
ティーチャーズカレッジのプログラムということで、本気になってやろうという。
However, I'm still looking for ways to justify my position and my place in the world. I don't want to teach out of need, but rather out of passion, and to touch lives and in turn be touched by others.
I think you fail to comprehend the meaning of the word justify. Did that bother you, or did you understand that word? Justify. Could you repeat that first sentence?
I'm looking for ways to justify my position as a teacher.
How would you say it in Japanese? It's much stronger than that. To justify is to reason, and so that this is right. Justify, 正当化する. But I want to justify my position as a teacher. じゃあなぜ先生をやってるのかを理解して。Why am I doing this teacher business? Right? That's the meaning. But by using one single verb, justify, the seriousness of the speaker comes out quite well. Doing it for what the need, or rather for passion. Didn't the speaker mention the word passion versus need? Right. Need is because I need money. I need to earn my living in Japan. Am I doing this teacher job because I have to make a living? Or am I teaching because I feel passionate about it? I am at this point anticipating that the speaker is going to say that I feel passionate about teaching, educating young people about my language. Of course, he might say in passing that I must make a living, so naturally I need to be paid. But money is not the primary purpose. If money is the primary purpose, I would try to invent new computer software and become Bill Gates and become the world's richest man for 3 consecutive years. Isn't that what he's doing? But I don't think he's happy. I don't think so. That's sour grapes. Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder. So,
Shall I continue?
please.
Okay. Let me go back a little bit. I do not want to teach out of need, but rather out of passion, to touch lives and be touched in turn be touched. However, I've reached an impasse, and I'm looking for which way to turn. At this proverbial fork in the road, I see on my right a path trampled flat, and on the left I see an overgrown road in desperate need of a machete.
All right, that's probably enough. No. Too many rare words. All right, thank you. I'll give you a break. Mike, thank you. Take seat. I might ask you to continue it. It's an interesting story. Thank you. You're a good sport. Now, can someone give Japanese translation? Quick summary. If you cannot do it in 4, I would accept a summary. Not 8. If you say 8 3 times, that becomes 24. I will show you the notes, but the way I would reproduce it is, pardon me. 私は自分の在り方を、そしてこの世界における自分の在り方をどう考えたらよいのか、いろいろ悩んできました。私はしなければならないから英語の教師をやっているのだろうか、それともそれに情熱を感じるからやるのであろうか。私は人生に触れてみたい。そして他の人にも私の人生に触れてもらいたい。Touch life って言わなかった、ね、That's very important. And be touched by others. Touch life. Touch life. Like E.T. I'm trying to reach out and help you. And I also like your input, your feedback. But however, did you say however? I don't remember. Anyway, yeah, I simply wrote but. But is all right, meaning the same. It's much quicker than writing however. しかし、インパスという言葉を使いませんでした。ね、インパス。What is impasse? You see, so if you are interpreting for a speaker of Mike's level of learning, scholarship, expect to hear words like that. It's not a high school in a high school vocabulary. High school children probably won't use the word like impasse. You have to be college educated or well read. But interpreted should know. Impasse is, how do you paraphrase it? You don't know which way to go, so you just don't go anywhere. That's impasse. Like last night, I was wondering what I should do. I was staying in Tokyo instead of going home, driving for an hour and a half, Yokohama, saying, what do I do? Should I just? So I decided to see a movie. called up one of my friends and saw a movie, Star Wars 3, Return of Jedi, for the 4th time. But if I was wondering, should I go to see a movie or should I just go back to my hotel room and sleep? But instead, which is better? Which is better? Wondering. Don't do anything. That's the worst thing. Impasse is little break, a little rest, a little stopping without committing yourself one way or the other. Right? Is that coming pretty close? Yeah. Thank you. So, and then came to a fork. What is a fork? Knife and fork. Fork in this sense probably is a farming instrument, right? Not kua, but ski. Ski has usually 3 prongs. Yeah, but means a fork of the road means 道路が2つに分かれる. That's a fork. And because it's a sort of cliche, Mike added the word proverbial. Proverb. ことわざ. Proverbial means a famous saying people often say. So this shows the choice of the word proverbial to me indicates the speaker's humbleness, apologizing in a way to the audience for using a word or phrase that is worn out somewhat, overused. But he wanted to make the point, and he felt fork is the right word here. So if you will permit me, I'll call it fork. That's the sense. So you can almost read the speaker's personality, listening as interpreters do. One is a path that is flat. 片っぽの道は平坦な道、flat 平らな道で obviously very easy to walk. And the next thing he's going to say, the other one is also flat. No. Sure enough, the others use the word overgrown. Overgrown. I tell you frankly, when I heard the word, I hesitated. Overgrown. What is overgrown? Can a road grow? No. Then, when he said, then you have to use machete. I was darn glad that I knew the word machete. Is that a Spanish word? Originally? Sounds like kama. 草を刈る鎌. What's some other word instead of machete? Machete is really it's a fighting knife also. No?
But they use it to clear.
That's right.
Like in
Is that right spelling? Yeah, machete. Check it out later. Yeah, usually it's hang from your shoulder, or not usually, but sometimes with a big blade going like this, moving like this. Is that a machete?
No, that's
It's like a short sword.
Short sword. Yeah, short sword. Yeah. Actually, Latinos used it as a weapon.
I thought it was more like
It's only got one blade.
One blade. Yeah.
just kind of like. Something like that.
Anyway, it's a cutting tool
Clear.
to clear. Then, when I heard him mention the word machete, I knew that what he meant by overgrown was the grasses or bushes, overgrown. So you can't travel on that road. You need machete to cut it down, right? So one thing is you have to have vocabulary, and then you should not panic if you hear one word that you did not understand, like commit, justify, identify. Wait and listen to the whole sentence. Then the meaning becomes very clear. And by the way, that dictionary you were using, what is it? The
M-A-C-H.
M-A-C-H? CHET, right, yeah. But that dictionary to me is too small for any serious student. No. Is that the Kenkyusha no pocket or what is it? Sansei no, anyway. Is that English, Japanese? I'm glad at least it's not the combined English, Japanese, Japanese, English. I don't like small dictionaries. They are of very little use unless you just want to check the spelling or something. If you want to find out minimum essentials of the words, maybe, but they don't help you speak or write English well. Use a little bigger ones. For your information, not necessarily for you to follow, but in my advanced interpreter class, which we call IS, interpreting seminar level, I don't allow my students to bring in concise size dictionaries because they are too small and of no use for interpreters, and in fact it does more harm than help you because it gives 2 or 3 translations and you are bound by them. You try to find something out at 1 or 2 or 3. Bigger dictionaries may give you 7, 8 choices, and with more practice you can quickly use a translation, not in dictionary but perfectly legitimate in a certain context. Would you like to try interpreting? All right, come up here. Mike, would you continue your interesting story? All right, so to help you do translation, so impasse,もう行き詰まりになった。Oh, that's not a bad word. 行き詰まった。I couldn't go forward anymore. 行き詰まってどちらへ行ったらよいのだろうか考えました。そしてそこでプロバービアル、世間でよく言う道路の分かれ目に来たのです。一方の道は平坦に見えました。もう片方の道は草が生い茂っており、鎌で刈らなければ進めません。Alright? So, imagine or anticipate how the story is going to develop. Is he going to take an easy flat road, humming? No, probably the other way. Right? Okay, thank you.
I'll go again with them before we just talk about it. I'm at an impasse and I'm looking for which way to turn. And at this proverbial fork in the road, I see on my right a path trampled flat, and on my left I see an overgrown road in desperate need of a machete. The choice is clear, to toil or to stroll.
Very brief. You translate only that last part. Would you do that again? Speak to everybody as a public speaker, which an interpreter is.
Perhaps for the same reason I have not diligently set out to master the Japanese language, my students don't feel the need to speak English. There is no struggle in either of our worlds. Perhaps for the same reason I have not diligently set out to master the Japanese language, my students do not feel the need to speak English. There is no struggle in either of our worlds.
あのね、ごめんなさいね。So many fine points get lost. Toil versus straw. That poetic notion should come out. Toil is 苦労する by the sweat of the brow on the one's straw is just a brum, right? I chose the other one. And just like I have not committed myself to studying Japanese. My students are not committed to studying English, right? That comparison is quite interesting.
I noticed it today when I translate.
Yeah, but when you are translating like that, now you are doing paragraph by sentence by sentence, I hope you can at least produce possible translation that the college entrance examiners will give you a mark of okay. Struggle or need to. These are carefully chosen words. And ideally, you should also use carefully chosen Japanese words that give you impact. Struggle. Perhaps 戦い。真剣にやる。Do it seriously, earnestly, right? And struggle and commitment was another example. You are doing the minimum subsistence level in traveling. But to really help the audience understand what this speaker is trying to reach them, you need to put more feeling into it.
Yeah, it's difficult for me. It's my limit because I put very much focus on grasping the outline of this.
But isn't the outline quite clear now, by now?
Yeah, it is, but I'm not get accustomed to this situation. So I'm very nervous.
Actually, you don't need to be an interpreter to understand this. Any member of the audience, passive audience, always listen to the speaker in context. This guy is going to talk nonsense. Or she is developing some interesting theme. I think I'll stay awake. So everybody's listening and anticipating the development. You don't listen to one word, one sentence and get surprised every time, right?
I felt as if I were taking exams.
So you know how the students feel.
It's good experience for me.
Right. All right. Hada-san, would you like to try? Do you, Hada? ごめんなさい。松永さん。All right, let's continue.
Okay, I'll just continue. So I'm dealing with a high degree of apathy.
私は私はここで、私の無関心だと書かなきゃいけなくなりました。
And perhaps this is indicative of our Western world. I guess the movement is indicate.
西洋社会でもそういうような人たちがありますが、見受けられますが、無関心、無感動の気持ちと同じであります。
And what I'm searching for is what it is to be human.
私が今探しているもの、見つけようとしたいものは、この人間とは一体何かということです。
And happiness to me is measured by the smiles exchanged between people.
幸福というのは、お互いに、人間同士が法にかけることではないかと私は思っています。
To celebrate life is to practice happiness.
そして、人間の、幸福というものを祝っていきます。
Regardless of what life we may have.
そして私たちの人生というのはどうあるべきなのか。
Poor or rich,
貧困の富、
young or old,
老若、年老いた人から若い人、
physically able or disabled,
肉体的にハンディキャップを背負った人、そうでない人、
mentally able or
また
mentally
精神的
disabled.
に障害を持っている人、でない人。
In fact, I've had the opportunity to work with mentally disabled people.
そういう精神的に障害を持った人と一緒に働きたいというチャンスが私に今あります。
I find it very rewarding.
本当にその仕事を今やってますけれども、価値あるもの、本当にやりがいがあると思っています。
Why is it that mentally handicapped people always smile and exude happiness? They must know something we don't know.
その精神的な障害の方たちを笑みを取り戻させるために、私は努力したいと思っております。
And given that, in that respect, perhaps our heart is handicapped. Our hearts. I'm just embellishing. No, I'm serious. I think that from what I can see in the handicapped people that I've met is a sense of happiness. Given the fact they don't have much to be happy about, makes me feel perhaps we are lacking in some way, that we are handicapped in another way.
私が出会ったそのハンデを背負った人たちが、幸せを感じていますけれども、私たち自身もその幸せを感じなければ、こちら側にその障害がちょっとずつあるのかもしれません。
You need to be more open-minded to an idea that you have never heard, to a foreign idea, exotic idea, something that you never thought of. Be open-minded, and then capture what this man stands for. He said he noticed smiles on the physically handicapped people. They smile more readily. Remember Yamashita Taro, the famous artist who had an IQ of a 5-year-old boy? But whatever he drew, fantastic paintings, right? Traveled all over the country in short pants. And remember Yamashita Taro?
Right.
Is that Yamashita Taro?
Yamashita
Kiyoshi, right? Yeah. But his smile was great. And as the speaker says, and I have not noticed it, very often, almost always, mentally handicapped people look very innocent, even cute, if I may say so, and smile at you, even though you may not like that person. The mentally disturbed people smile. So maybe they know what happiness is. Maybe it's us who don't know what that is, right? And why do they exchange smiles? I think that's how it's mentioned. And exude happiness. That's a beautiful choice of word. Exude. How do you spell exude? E-X-H-U. Right? Exude. I learned what that word in one of the Shakespeare plays. I think it was Hamlet. Exuding a charm from every pore. Pore is a keanakana. Miyoko hasa. Something like it. What's one way to pick up a big word like that? And in that sense, his final part was, in that sense, it is us who are handicapped. Our heart is handicapped. Is that sort of paraphrasing it? right? We think we are normal, but maybe we too are handicapped in heart. 考え方で障害があるんですよ。Alright? But you do fairly well. Thank you. Who would like? Have you reached your conclusion, Morris? No, not yet. Little more. Yeah. Who? I need another volunteer. One of the ladies. 大谷さん。Give it a go. There has to be first time for anybody. I always tell myself, there has to be the first time. Well, Mike will be nice. Mike will give it in short pieces so that you don't have to remember a lot.
So it is with teaching. So it is with teaching. I feel to give is to grow.
Excuse me, you skipped that first part. So it is with teaching. しても Please complete your sentence in Japanese. All right, please continue.
To give is to grow, and that goes for the teacher and the reciprocant. But to